All right. Just trying to make sure they just call me to make sure that we're live. And we are live. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen,
Yay.
you are now listening to Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. I am Sean Williams, aka Mr. President, the President. And I'm the host of the Safe Room Podcast, a safe space for entrepreneurs and business owners to share their personal and professional stories. But today, we have a podcaster as our guest. So it's going to be a really nice connection. And, we have to, show love to our podcasters here on the Safe Room podcast. And
Mhm.
this podcaster is the host of the Other Side of Fear podcast. And her podcast is acclaimed for its holistic approach to overcoming fear, delves into the profound impact of individual insecurities, so societal conditioning, and past traumas. So if you like a really deep, introspective conversation, this is your type of podcast that you need to tap into. And this is the person that you need to hear for these conversations, facilitating these masterful wordsmith type conversations. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have Kertia Janae. Kertia, how are you doing?
I am amazing. It's really exciting to be here having this conversation with you.
Yeah, I'm
How
super
are
excited.
you? How are you?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm feeling good. It's been a long day, a lot's happened, but I always look forward to coming on here and, speaking with any of my guests coming on here on Love Bay Radio. So I'm excited for this conversation.
That sounds good. That sounds good.
Okay, perfect, perfect. So we're definitely going to talk about your podcast, just how it got started, how you came to this journey. I know the first time we connected, it was business in the streets. And I remember from our first interaction, it was like very interesting to hear, like, oh, wow, like there's another podcaster in the room. It's not just me. So
Yeah. 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 That was good. That was good. The first thing that stood out to me was your voice. I was just like, oh my gosh, she has like a radio perfect voice.
yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. I get that
Yeah.
compliment sometimes, and I feel like it's always good to hear, but I do appreciate it. But I remember just our first interaction, you saying that, hey, I have a podcast. You wanted to like build upon it. I mean, now seeing where it's at right now, you're doing some fantastic work. Just seeing you staying consistent, you're grinding. It shows. It shows that you are here to stay, and this is something that you're committed to. So, I mean, shout out to you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're definitely going to talk about your podcast, go into more deeper insight on that. But before we get into that, we have to open up with our main segment, which is the hot seat. So I'm just going to ask you four simple questions and just
Okay.
make sure to answer them to your best abilities. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So the first question I have here. So outside the work that you do, tell me something about yourself in one sentence.
I love the outdoors. I love nature, and I'm obsessed with roller skating.
Oh wow, roller skating. That's interesting. I've never
Yeah.
roller skate, so that's completely new to me. But maybe you can tell me like when you got started with roller skating.
That was maybe 2 years ago. And I kind of taught myself how to do it. I've always wanted to do it as a child, but the opportunity never presented itself. And then the first time I tried, I completely just made a mess of myself. So I finally taught myself how to do it 2 years ago. And now that's what I love doing all the time.
All right. I definitely am like on the opposite side of the spectrum when it comes to like trying something new. I feel like if it's just not in my repertoire, then I'm just not gonna do it, period. But maybe I need to try something new.
Maybe you should. Maybe you should. It's scary at first, but after you get the hang of it, it takes a lot of practice. Consistency is key. And once you've got the practice down and you've been doing it, your body kind of begins to have the muscle memory for it, and then you're good.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Okay, that's a interesting start to the segment so far. So I like where we're going with things. I really like where we're going with things. So let's go on to the next question that I have, and this one's pretty interesting. So, what is your biggest pet peeve when it comes to podcasters?
Okay. So I think I would say this applies to both podcasters and guests. And that is someone who is not very well at listening. I mean, really listen with intention. Sometimes people are already ready with a response before you can even get a full thought out. And oftentimes their response is completely off, completely out of line with what I was trying to say in the first place. So, listening to understand and not listening just to respond, it's a skill. It's a skill that you need to practice. And I'm not faulting anyone. There's no judgment, nothing like that. I think it's something that a lot of us struggle with, but it just gets a little bit sticky when you're on the mic and you're trying to get to the details of a conversation. And then, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So, yeah.
I understand. And again, it's I feel like it is important if you're someone who's on a podcast, whether it's the host or the guest, being able to listen to a conversation and
Yeah.
not just have some like pre-prepared answer. It kind of shows that you're engaged and you actually want to follow along and just make the conversation normal.
Yeah, like allow someone to kind of flesh your thought outs and, also be able to kind of like go along with it and follow up with what they said instead of just jump into the next thing or jumping in with your own response or your own bias or your own agenda or whatever. So or just listening intentionally, listening to understand, and listening to make a genuine connection with the person that is across the mic from you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. I like that. Let's go on to the next question here. So, what is an interesting fact that you rarely share about yourself?
Um, okay. I love to dance like next level. I actually often wished I had gotten into professional dancing, and who knows, maybe one day I might. You're never too old, it's never too late. But at some point earlier in my 20s, I did Latin dancing classes. I was doing the cha cha, samba, bachata, swing, foxtrot, waltz. I was doing a lot. So I did that for a while on the side. It wasn't anything serious at the time, but that was something that I truly enjoyed. I love dancing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I see that from you for sure. I feel like, that
Yeah.
was a secret. Like, you know what? She probably likes to dance because I know like the amount of times that we see each other in person, whether it's like at an event or anything like that. I mean, there hasn't been a situation where like I've seen you dance, but I kind of get the sense like, if there was like a song that came on, I could see Kertia you do a little 1-2 movement and
It's
stuff like that.
over. It's over. I love to dance. Yeah. If you catch me anywhere where there's good music, I'm gonna be doing more than a little 1, 2 steps.
Okay, that's great to hear. Are you definitely the person where if there's like sometimes I have like a little dance circle that starts to form and everything that are you the first person to immediately jump in?
I wouldn't immediately jump in, but somehow I end up there. I start off
Yeah,
at the slide and then people are like, "Ooh, okay, she's doing something." And eventually I end up there without realizing that I'm there. I'm usually
absolutely.
off watching and enjoying other people at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, you'll always have a group of people that if they know you very well and they know that you can dance, they'll literally start screaming, yeah, get Kersha in there. No, Kersha, get in
Yeah,
the middle of the circle, start dancing. It's just like,
yeah.
listen, chill, like relax. I don't want to like be up front and center.
Yeah, exactly, and that's me because I'm very introverted, but I do have an extroverted side to myself, but I like to be extroverted when I'm ready. I don't like to be just thrown in. So, yeah.
Yeah, I totally understand. Okay, let's go on to the final question for
All
this
right.
hot take segment. Is what is your personal safe room? So, what is a safe space? It could be physical or it could be mental that allows you to just be yourself, your personal self?
All right. A good question. Okay. I would say my safe room is my heart. It's my heart center. Because when I'm connected to my heart space, that's when I am the most authentic, the most in tune, the most creative. That's when I feel most aligned. That's when I'm most grounded and inspired. And, also can just think and act in a way that is also in my best interest, which, as it turns out, is very beneficial for everyone else around me. But I am truly the best version of myself when I am connected to my heart center. In my heart center, there is no fear. So, yeah, that's my safe
Yeah.
room.
I love that. I love that. Again, it's something about, just kind of looking deep within inside yourself, especially your heart, and just allowing yourself to kind of, let go of all the troubles, the stresses in the world. Cause
Yeah,
sometimes we go through a lot. There's so much that happens where it's a lot to deal with. And sometimes you may need to just have that little one-on-one moment with yourself to kind of reflect on where you are and kind of
yeah,
remind yourself, like, yeah, you know what? I'm in a bad spot, or I'm in a good spot. It's not just about looking at the bad, but also celebrating the good. And I think what we try
yeah.
to do here on the podcast is kind of have a good blend of like sharing our successes, but also sharing some of the trials and tribulations that we've gone through, because we want to acknowledge the full story. It's not just about looking at one side and completely, erasing the other. We want to look at it equal, basically, in a way.
Exactly. It's all about just being connected to yourself, being present, being connected to yourself, and like just kind of being grounded. When you are grounded, you are free of all the external stresses, of all the external pressures. You're kind of just there. It's like almost like a meditative space, but you don't necessarily have to be meditating, but it's just having that connection to your heart center where you're most grounded, right? So, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Before we move on further, I just want to make sure for everyone who's watching, are you able to see Kersha? Because on my end, you're frozen. Like, I hear you, but your visuals like are frozen.
Am I frozen?
Yeah, like on your screen you're frozen, but I can hear you completely. Like, I can hear you perfectly.
I can see myself though.
Okay, so I can see
Like
myself.
I'm not frozen on my end.
Okay, so maybe it's on my end, because like you're kind of like freezing in and out. So like I just wanted to
Oh,
make sure. But if everyone else can see Kersha, then I think we're fine.
all right.
I think
Okay.
it's just my laptop doing laptop things at this point.
Yeah, I'm
So
okay on my end.
okay, perfect, perfect. All right, but that's pretty much it. That's what wraps up the hot seat segment. And again, for people who are coming in, you are listening to the Safe Room here on Love Bay Radio. We're here with Kersha Janae, the podcast host for The Other Side of Fear, and we're now going to get deeper into your podcast, Kersha. Which, again, I remember when you told me you had a podcast. Again, it gets me excited because I feel like podcasting is definitely growing, but in terms of the people I've connected with, feel like I don't connect with a lot of podcasters. Like in the last 4 years, I
Me
know like
too.
a good amount, but it's not like an astronomical amount of people I know that are like, oh, they're podcasters, or people in my circle. It's like, no, like it's people who want to be on a podcast, but never a podcaster themselves. Like, I don't know if you get that same vibe on your end.
Yeah, yeah. I can count on one hand how many podcasters I've connected with, especially in Toronto. I've been to Podfest and I connected with tons of podcasters there. But outside of that, in Toronto, I haven't connected with many podcasters. I would say maybe five, and that's it.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel like going to events like Podfest, or even the Soundwave Summit. That's something that we went to. Was
Yeah.
it just last month already? Or was it beginning of the month?
Right?
I don't
Right?
even know. So
It's crazy how time just flies.
I know it's
Yeah.
insane to look at it in that way. So I
But that
mean,
was amazing though.
it really was. It was a
Yeah.
very fun time. Shout out to everyone who worked on the Soundwave Summit. What an excellent day. I mean, enjoyed myself tremendously. The amount of knowledge that was shared from the panels, the Q&As, just everything was
Mhm.
absolutely amazing. And I can't wait for, volume two. I know volume two is coming very soon. So
Yeah, I loved it. It was very informative. Everyone were they were really cool. So much information, so much knowledge that was in that room, and it was so helpful. So helpful.
yeah.
So if anyone's thinking of becoming a podcaster, that's definitely the place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first question I have for you is what was the motivation for you building your podcast and specifically around people's stories and examining their fears to like not only talk about it but also learn how to navigate through those fears through the conversations that you had on your podcast.
Well, it really began with my own personal experience and the way that fear personally showed up for me in my life. You know, going back to childhood, generally speaking, in childhood, there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of programming, there's a lot of conditioning that happens, right? And, that creates the perception that we often operate from. So, the conditioning that I received in childhood, it definitely created the way that I perceive myself and the way that I perceive the world around me. And then that determined the way that I chose to show up and interact with the world. And that happens with everyone because we are all products of our environment to a significant degree. But, thinking about how our developing brains, it soaks up so many things in childhood, even the things that are unsaid. So when your environment is when it's imparting a messaging based on, for example, scarcity, fear, lack of any sort, whether it be lack of resources, lack of emotional availability, affection, and then there's also maybe a lack of a sense of physical safety or any lack instability. We become conditioned to see the world in a certain way, and then that becomes the default programming that we operate from. So now, something like that, when I just mentioned lack, that often creates a very kind of fear-based, scarcity-based mindset. Right. That's why I kind of threw those out there. So for example, if someone experienced certain types of abuse in childhood, right? Let's throw out sexual abuse or saw that abuse being done to someone else. They can develop a fear and the underlying mindset that the world is unsafe or people are unsafe, and that is a symptom of it's a symptom of you having the symptom of that, I would say, it's you having a hard time trusting people, right? Because now you have this mindset that is based on fear that the world is unsafe and people are unsafe. So therefore, I don't trust people, right? And that often happens with people who have been abused in different ways, right? So the brain, it works just like a computer. However it's been programmed, it's the way it will operate, and all of that trickles down into the life choices that we make for ourselves. So that's kind of where that began. It just began with me, thinking about that broad idea that I just threw out there, thinking about my childhood and the things that I experienced in my childhood that created a fear based mindset because that's what I had and that's what I was operating from, especially in my 20s. My goodness, my life was a mess. It was a mess. I was a mess. I was a hot mess, because I didn't realize that I was operating from this mindset. And so that definitely affected the way that I perceive myself, the way that I perceive other people, the way that I perceive the world, and then how I chose to show up in the world. Right. So for me, for example, some of my experiences taught me that it's unsafe to be seen. It's unsafe to speak up. It's unsafe to trust others, and that love is earned. So that created a fear based mindset, and I became a highly anxious person. So I didn't think I was enough. I would often make myself smaller so that I could be more palatable for people. Um, I didn't have that sense of safety, especially when it came to relationships, and was a huge people pleaser because of anxious attachment issues, right? So I was someone who was always afraid to speak up, and I would try avoid being seen as much as possible. So just very insecure, and I lacked confidence, so operating from that kind of mindset and looking at some of the symptoms of that, I'm sure you can tell by now, like everything that I just kind of threw at you. I'm sure you can tell thinking about that, you can kind of piece together what my decision making might have looked like. My my mental health and my life choices were a total mess. Um, and honestly, I've lost count of how many times I've shot myself in the leg. So taking all of
Mm.
that together, I know it's heavy, yeah.
It's a lot.
Um,
It's a lot.
yeah, but this is what the podcast is about. It's about having these real deep conversations. These are conversations that a lot of people, they're afraid to talk about, but they're so important because mental health is it's a huge thing that we need to pay attention to, especially in the Black community. A lot of people don't talk about the things that they experience. A lot of people don't talk about their feelings, right? A lot of people think that going to therapy, it's not for them. It doesn't work, or some people think they're too broken to be helped. I mean, whatever the issue is, whatever the feeling is, it's something that we need to address. So
Absolutely.
yeah, and taking all of that together, developing the podcast, I thought it was really important, not just, it's not just a focus on my experience, but then using that to see how I can help other people, right? So I thought that it was really important to bring experiences like this to the forefront because we don't speak about it enough. It's really uncomfortable, but we as humans, we need to get used to the idea. We need to get used to being uncomfortable because that is how we grow, right? And another important piece of that is letting people know that they're not alone, because when you're going through it, it can be extremely isolating, and we often don't realize that we go through some version of the same thing, right? Just a different degree. So, yeah, a lot of us have experienced a fear based mindset, or scarcity based mindset, or some other kind of mindset, some version of it, right? It looks different for everyone, it shows up differently for everyone, but we do experience the same things, just at different degrees. So, it was really important for me to include other people on the podcast and allow them to share their story so that those who listen can see some part of them reflected in those stories, in those unique stories. And the other side of that is to provide resources as well, and different things or practices that people can use to help shift their mindset and, you know, heal and get them moving through the things that often holds them back. So, you know, thinking about the guests that I have on the show, it varies. Some people come and they have a really important story to tell and a message that is connected to that story. And then there are other people who are professionals in the mental health field, like maybe psychologists. And then we have people on the spiritual field who are maybe psychics or who practice some other form of various forms of spirituality, actually. and they have their own insight that they can offer, and their own tools and resources that they also offer to help, right? So yeah, and that's why it was just really important for me to include other people on it, because I didn't want it to just be about my story. I really wanted to show a variety of, the human experience, right? And let people see that they're not alone. Have people see that, their stories are also reflected in others, right? Their experiences are also reflected in others. So that's what it's all about.
Perfect. Guys, as you can see, the podcast gene is in within her. I did not want to interrupt her once. I'm like, I know she's got a lot that she wants to say. So I'm just gonna let her say everything. No, it's good because like I said, like there's a lot of times I'm the one talking. So when anyone else gets to talk and take over, I'm okay with it. That's the whole point of the safe room. And honestly, usually I do have something I would say in response, but I feel like you said so much and you nailed everything on the head. All I have to say is like 100%. Like even for me, how the safe room is, it's creating that safe space to allow people to share their personal and professional stories. I remember when
Yeah.
I got started, and this is hard to believe, ladies and gentlemen, like when I was young, I was pretty quiet. Like I was in the classroom, kind of stuck to my books, but I wasn't really trying to like talk to anyone. Yes, I had my group of friends, but I wasn't the most outgoing, the most like vibrant person in the room. I was just very just one dimensional when it came to my interactions, just kind of like, yeah, do my work, go home, nothing else. And I noticed the more I got older and older, I told myself, I want to talk to more people. I want to be a little bit more interactional with, different people, just get to know them a little bit better. And I feel like that breakthrough kind of came during like my high school days, which was really great because it allowed me to meet so much wonderful, people that I now know as like good friends and good, working partners. And it's just amazing to see that again, like you mentioned so much stuff. There's like the scarcity mindset, that fear mindset in the way where you just feel like you have to dumb yourself down a bit just to kind of fit within certain circles or like kind of fit
Yeah.
within the standards of like certain people. Just like, okay, how I interact with them. I shouldn't, try to do something too crazy because if I do, then it's just gonna feel awkward. Like I can't count the amount of times where when I was young, I thought, oh, let me do something cool. But like to them, it wasn't a matter of like, oh wow, like that's super dope. Like, oh, hey, I should probably get to know Sean a bit better. It was one of those like, oh my god, that's crazy. In the way like you're not supposed to do that, but because you did it, it's kind of weird and it's kind of shocking, but it's still cool. But it just never resonated to the point where like, oh, I didn't know that about Sean. Like I one
Yeah.
thing I loved to do when I was like in school is that I love drama class. Like I love like anytime I got to do any acting, that was my stuff. And people were shocked because it's like, if you met Sean back in middle school, like this guy was quiet. Like he did his work. He's like, don't bug me, don't do nothing like that. But when you saw him in drama class, it was like a whole 180. It was like the most loud, the most vibrant. I still remember the Christmas play I wrote for my high school. And for anyone who's like, I know my sister's in here, so she knows exactly what I'm talking about. That Christmas play was goated. I wrote the entire script. It's one of the greatest moments to happen in that high school. But what I'm trying to say basically is I would do so much great things that I enjoyed. And just at the moment, like I still felt like I don't know. Like I feel like I'm still kind of holding myself back in terms of how I
Yeah.
could express myself. I just felt like I was trying to please everyone. And I think once I started this podcast, it wasn't just for having open-ended conversations with people. It was also kind of rediscovering myself as well. Like, okay, this is a chance for me to kind of show my personality, let people see, that I'm a bubbly person. I like to talk with people. I like to get to know them better, like again,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not a person that makes people smile because I'm like, if you tell me to say a joke, like I can't. I feel like how I get people to laugh is when I'm real, which sounds bad, but it's kind of true. When
It's
I'm
the
just
same with
being,
me.
it's like I'm being blunt. Like I can't be funny intentionally because I'm not gonna make you laugh. But when I'm just real, it's just like it's funny to people. But I felt like through over time with my podcast, it's allowed me to find myself to be be a little bit more open, and it's been amazing. I'm glad to hear that, for you, you were able to discover that with yourself. And like I can tell, like anytime I see you, like you're super active, you're always, trying to talk to the next person, which is great. And I like to stay around people like that, because we always have to keep networking and sharing as well. And then here's my sister typing in he loves cup stacking too. So I guess
I
we're
can
bringing
see
up
that.
memories now. Like, oh my gosh. So that was
Cup
a phase.
stacking.
That was a random phase in my life. I did a talent show back in elementary school, and like, listen, never again. I'm sorry. I'm just being honest. I don't want to
I
get too
love
off
that.
topic, but yeah, it's amazing to see just how you've progressed over time. Not for yourself, again, going through your childhood and going through those
Yeah.
moments, and now building yourself as this strong, independent woman who is learning to overcome her fears day by day, and is doing a damn hell of a job for doing that. So shout out to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I was just laughing because I'm just like, I'm exactly like that. If people find me funny when I'm not trying to be funny, I'm being real because I can't tell a joke for nothing. But people think I'm hilarious when I'm being like just really smart with my mouth. So, I mean, that works. But, just tracking back to what you said about, dumbing ourselves down, that is like huge because it not only does it happen in school and friendship circles, it also happen in families, right? And there's a lot of time, as I said, I grew up feeling like no one wanted to hear me. I feel like I felt unheard. I felt unseen a lot of the times. And so because of that, I didn't speak much. I became introverted. The safer way for me was to just be quiet. Right. And so that's where a lot of my introvertedness came from. But I have a completely different side to my personality, which I didn't really grow into until, I started blossoming when I've done my self-healing, self-development journey, which was, people think that healing, it sounds all like fun and all that stuff, but no, it's it's not
Yeah,
so fun. Like healing can be a very difficult, challenging experience, but once you get to the other side, that's when it becomes a little bit fun. But the process in itself, it's not. You can go to some really dark places in your mind. And, I've been through that journey, right? But going through that journey was really important for me because that's what has gotten me to this place to be able to do this podcast, to be able to invite people into my world and to invite people across the mic from me to speak about these really deep things that a lot of people are afraid and uncomfortable to talk about. Right. So, yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And I love how you mentioned healing, because, like you mentioned, everyone has their own process of dealing through just their struggles and what they're going through, and like healing can look completely different to someone compared to like the next. Like I know for me, sometimes how I try to like heal myself is like, I'll just listen to music. Like I'll just
Yeah.
put on anything, and it just kind of calms me down, regardless of like how I'm feeling. Even if it's like a very bad like mood I'm in, I always try to put on some music. One thing I've been trying to do more often is like, check out just like other podcasts and listen to that as I go. Even like going through like the Bible app I have, like my devotionals, just trying to read through those and just, catch up on that. There's like so many different
Yeah.
ways I feel many people have in terms of just like, dealing with these pains, these growing pains in a way. But I think it's important that you do mention healing, because it's necessary. Like I feel like the only way to feel happy is that you got to go through some pain. You have to, have some level of fear. I feel like without fear, you can't really find true success in what you're doing. Like
Yeah.
I find that the hard way. I feel like if you tell yourself, you know what, I'm trying to like do this like one huge opportunity, but I'm not scared, then
Yeah.
I don't know how to feel about that. It's just like, okay, what happens if I do get it? It's just like, what's next? And if once you kind of embrace fear as well, it allows you that to tell yourself like you're growing, you're actually ascending to the
Yeah.
next level, to the next echelon. And I think that's super important, especially to anyone who tries to live with that imposter syndrome. And trust me, we've all gone through that. I've gone through
Mhm.
imposter syndrome, and
Me too.
it's a deadly pill. It's a deadly pill to swallow. But I feel like, you know, that's part of life. It's kind of like a cocoon that, once you're able to break out, you start to spread your wings and you become like the butterfly that you're meant to be.
Exactly. Exactly. It's just a part of the human process. It's not bad. Fear is not bad. It's a part
Yeah.
of being human.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. Man, this conversation is going super well. This conversation is going super well. I love the
Good.
vibes that we're on. Again, for anyone coming in right now, you are listening to the Safe Room here on Love Bay Radio. We're here with Kertia Janae, the host and founder of the Other Side of Fear podcast. One more thing I should probably mention. I should have mentioned at the beginning, if you guys actually want to go check out the episode I did on Kertia's podcast, then you can definitely go do that. We'll say that for the end, so that way you can let people know, Kertia, on where to check out that episode that I was on with you. It was such a pleasure having that conversation as well.
That was a really good episode.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
fantastic episode. But I want to
Yeah.
go a little bit deeper now into podcasting, because I know for a lot of people, and I get this question all the time, it's like, what does podcasting look like? I want to start a podcast, but I don't know how to. But I want to ask you personally, just what guidance have you been getting throughout your journey as a podcaster? And like, what are some valuable lessons you've been taking for yourself that's allowed you to take the other side of fear as a podcast and see it grow, day after day, month after month?
What guidance? Okay. Um Talking about action wise, I
It,
had to learn a lot of things on the fly. I had to teach myself a lot of things that I didn't know how to do previously. I went through YouTube videos. I read everything that I could find. I went through the reviews. There's that part of it. And then there's a personal part of it, right? Getting the materials and the equipment and knowing what best mic to use and the audio interface and all those things. Yeah, you need that. You need that knowledge, right? And how to edit and all that stuff. I had to teach myself all of that. But here I am. It was worth it. So there's that part. And then there's the personal piece, right? When I first decided to podcast, I didn't just jump into podcasting. I was so afraid. It was just I was so scared. And people are like, really? But you seem so confident and blah, and blah. I'm just like, no, it didn't start like that for me. My first episode that I did, I was shaking. My anxiety was through the roof. So, podcasting has been a self development journey for me. It has truly been a self development journey for me as I've done it more, I've gotten better, I've gotten more confidence, I've grown, I've developed new skills, I've learned so many things, I've met amazing people. But talking about guidance on the personal level, um, my guidance honestly is just from the creator because I really had to tune into my intuition, into everything that I'm doing with the podcast, into who I invite on the podcast, into how I told the stories on the podcast. And one of the most valuable lessons that I've learned is that once you get in alignment with your purpose, all the things, all the people, all the resources, it shows up to support you on that journey. And that is one of the most valuable things because as I said, I was just so afraid. I didn't have the confidence, Sean. And as much as like, yeah, I knew that I wanted to do podcasting. I planned to do it 2 years before I officially started. right? And it took me 2 years just mulling over everything. And yeah, I was learning and taking notes and all that, but I didn't act. I didn't act on it because of the fear, because of the anxiety, because I was afraid of judgment, because I was afraid of putting myself out there and wondering what people would think about me, right? I was just so concerned on how I would look, on how I would sound, and, like criticism and all those things, because I knew that what I was talking about was really personal. I knew that what I was talking about was really hard and heavy. And I know that a lot of people don't talk about those things easily, right? That's just the truth of it all. Like, a lot of people don't like to have those conversations. So I was thinking, who am I even going to get to tell me their things, their problems, the things that they've been through? It's not a lot of that's not something that people want to readily open up to anyone about. But, you know, when I started, it was actually my partner. She bought me a microphone. She bought me my first mic
That's nice.
as a Christmas gift. And I'm just like, oh crap, I have to do it.
It's like you get no backing down now. It's
Yeah.
in it to win it.
Oh my God. I didn't even ask for the thing. I'm like, oh yeah, I know you want to do it. So this is what I'm going to get. I'm just like, oh, great. Thanks. Love you.
You know what?
But-
Before you continue, if it means anything, my sister did buy me a brand new interface for Christmas as well. So like, and I knew, like I've mentioned it before, but I didn't expect her to get me anything. So that was a complete like pipe bomb on my end. So like, it's great to know when you have people who see what you're trying to do, and they
yeah.
want to support you on that journey.
Exactly. And they see the value of what you're trying to do. That is so important. And that was it. When I realized that someone believed in me more than I believed in myself. Someone saw the value in what I wanted to do, and they were willing to invest in me, before I even invested in myself. That was like mind blowing. And that changed everything. And then that made me accountable. And now I had to do something about it. Now I had to get off YouTube and stop taking notes and actually put all of that into action and do something about it. I had to take action, even if it wasn't perfect, because, you know, I had this whole perfectionist thing going on too. And all of that just came out of like just personal insecurities, right? You know, a lot of people, I don't think people realize sometimes that perfectionism does come from um, some level of insecurity, or not feeling like you're enough, or maybe a self-worth issue. So perfectionism does also come from that, right? Yeah, it's great for us to want to like have our stuff together and looking good and presenting things great. But when it gets to like having that level of perfectionism whereby it stops you in your track, whereby you can't get anything done because it's never good enough, it's never perfect enough, that usually comes from something deeper. So yeah, so and that's what it was for me. And having someone else take that first step was actually what finally gave me that huge push. And that's when I decided to start recording and get on the mic and do my thing.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And listen, hearing just how you got started again, you wanted to take the time to kind of figure things out. You didn't want to rush into it. And I probably did mention this in the conversation that we had on your podcast, but I was the complete opposite. When I wanted to get started, I jumped in, and boy oh
Yeah.
boy, I made a big mistake doing that. I just immediately went straight to the jugular for that one. But I mean, it was kind of like my own journey. I had to figure out on my own. I got started, and I knew nothing about podcasting. I did some podcast work during my university days, but that was pretty much it. So when I got started, I was just like, I was using Audacity. I had a $20 mic that I bought at Winners. So first off, anyone listening who wants to start a podcast, don't get a $20 microphone at Winners. That is a red flag. That's the first thing I would say right there. But when I got started, I thought, oh wow, like look at me, I'm a podcaster living the life. And then I realized, you know what, I know I'm doing something wrong. So I actually decided to take the time and do the proper research and see like how can I learn. So then I started, going on Apple Podcasts. And mind you, when I got started, like, or even before I got started, I never touched that app. Never did. It was literally just sitting on my screen collecting dust. And it was only until I got started, I started using Apple Podcasts. I was like, oh my gosh, like there's so much going on. And I remember getting started and, listening to like different podcasts at the time being the Who and How Club. Shout out to Eris. But What Do I Know podcast. Shout out to Chid. Hustle Over Everything. Shout out to Alex and Owen, who were the co-hosts at the time being. There was so much people I was listening to, and I thought, wow, like they sound amazing. Like I want to get myself to that level. So I had to,
Yeah.
keep putting a step forward, making sure that I'm getting the right equipment, I'm getting the right sound, the right quality. But it was nerve wracking too, because at the same time as I was growing, I still felt like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. And, I was releasing videos on YouTube, but they were barely getting views. I think I still
Yeah.
remember at some points, there were a couple of videos that were out on YouTube for weeks and not a single view was there. There were like zeros across the board. I started to feel insecure saying like, dang, like, am I actually good at this? Am I really meant to be doing something like this? And, again,
Yeah.
we're always going to have to go through these struggles. And I feel like they're more of learning lessons than L's. I don't think like L's are like losses. They're lessons that we have to
Mhm.
kind of take in consideration, build upon, and say, okay, this is not working. How can I change? Or I'm overthinking this and I need to tell myself that the stuff that you're doing
Yeah.
is worth it. And now, fast forward, we're on the radio. Like, if you told me that like 2 years ago, I would have smacked you silly. Like, boy, no, we would have never been on the radio. But we're on the radio now. That's something that wasn't on my wish list. It wasn't even on my
Yeah.
bucket list. So the fact that we're here now goes to show that sometimes you gotta go through that pain and that fear to realize your full potential at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's just a part of the human growth process. It's not all bad. It's not all gloom and doom. So, like, yeah, even for you, because I saw you as someone super confident, right? And I'm just like, this is like Shon just does his thing. He's just in his zone. He's chill. He just talks all the stuff. I'm just like, he is just such a natural. And you wouldn't know that like you had some level of insecurity or questioning yourself. And it's been like that for me too. And I think a lot of people go through those things, but we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to say, because of how we may feel, we look, or what people might think about us, but we all go through the same things, right? Just a different degrees of it, right? So yeah, and it's been like this podcasting journey has just been such a self-growth journey for me. It has added on to whatever self-work that I've done so far. So it has been great. And the times when I question myself if this is what I should be doing, as I said, one of the biggest lessons I learned is that, you know, once you're in alignment with what you're supposed to be doing, with your purpose, all the things and people and resources, they show up. They show up to support you on that journey. And that it's been like that for me, podcasting. There's times when I realized that every time I felt down or I was questioning myself, the next conversation that I have with someone, they would say something that would just completely blow my mind. And I'm just like, okay, God, I get it. I get it. Right? They will say something or they will offer something that is the exact thing that I needed, the exact puzzle that I was trying to figure out, to the challenge that I was facing. Or they would just say something to me and it would just be right in line with whatever it is that was happening in my head, and it would just blow my mind. So yeah, that's been my biggest lesson.
Yeah, I feel like we all hear that one phrase from someone that makes you kind of rethink your life choices, or like it's like that big bomb your head like, what? Like it happened to me like a couple of days ago. So I had a call with someone and they said that contacts lead to contracts. And the missing letter of that is R, and the R stands for relationships.
Yeah.
When I heard that, I was like my brain I got a
Yeah.
little brain freeze right there. Like my brain was just like on 0%. I'm like, wait, what? Like
That's good.
it hit the soul. I was like, nah, like that's deep. But I
You
totally
felt that.
agree. Yeah. It was like, damn, like take it easy.
I get it. I
Absolutely.
get it. And it happens to me all the time. So I'm just like, okay, I get it. I get
Okay,
it.
that's great. That's great. So I actually wanted to ask you quickly. So since again you've been able to grow over this time, I wanted to ask you what equipment are you using at this time? Because I always like to, ask other podcasters like what are you using at the moment? Like what's helping you to like, operate your podcast smoothly. So I'm just asking like what equipment do you have on you right now? Or like I guess what mic, what interface are you using right now for your
All
podcast?
right. Okay. I am using for my mic a Shure SM7B. Did I say that right? Yep. And then for my interface, I have the Rode, the Rodecaster Pro, right? Not the 2. I think it's the 1. Yeah. So that's what I'm using.
Okay, so that's a lot of money to consider because I know the Rollcaster Pro that is not cheap. It's one of the more expensive interfaces.
I mean, but any decent, good interface would do. It was just I was okay with making the investment. I
Yeah,
mean, if it
yeah,
meant that it was gonna be easier for me, I tried to make things really easy for myself. I'm just like, this looks really easy. I'm gonna buy it.
yeah. I totally understand. Yeah, like the Rollcaster Pro, that's definitely like I feel like that's the perfect interface if you have like multiple co-hosts or if you want to
Yeah,
do like sound effects. So like I know like what's it? There's the Extra Gravy Show. Like if you heard of that on like Instagram and everything like that. I feel like that would be great for them because they have like 3 co-hosts and like they have like different
yeah,
soundboards and stuff like that. So even for me, like I'm using the Shure MV7. So I don't have the SM7B because like I know for me personally, I feel like I know that microphone's like a condenser microphone, and what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is like it really does its best to like, remove all the background noises. But sometimes if you're in a room where if you knock on like something, maybe it's like on wood or anything like that makes a sound, a condenser microphone will pick up like the slightest sound. So like you want to be careful, but I know for me, I didn't want to go that route. So I have like the
yeah.
MV7. It works really well as a USB microphone and an XLR. And then my interface, I'm using the Vocaster one. I have the Vocaster
Nice,
2. So
nice.
that was the gift my sister gave me. She gave me the Vocaster 2, but the
Yeah, those
Vocaster
are really
one,
good.
yeah, like the Vocaster
Yeah,
one works perfectly for me. Anytime I'm remote, I can just use it for myself. If I'm in person, I just bring the Vocaster too. But I am in the market of getting a new interface. I know there's the Zoom H4, I believe. So it's like 4
yeah.
outputs. So I want to do something like that. And I do want to upgrade my microphone sometime too. But I feel like this one's been doing the job since.
Amazing. Yeah, like those are pretty good. Like what you have there, it's actually a really good setup. You don't have to. I don't want anyone to think that they have to go out and get a Rodecaster Pro to start their podcast. You do not. You don't have to do that. It's not necessary. There are much more budget friendly options. Um, I just kind of got this because I like the way my mind works. I like to prepare because I already know what I want to do, even if I'm not doing it today. So whatever I get, I am preparing for that thing that I know that I'm going to do a year or 2 years from now. Right. So that is kind of even with my laptop, when I bought my new laptop, my youngest daughter accidentally spilled water all over my old one and it got completely fried. So I had to replace it. And when I was getting my computer, even before I started a podcast, I knew that I was going to be doing something media relevant. So I got it completely custom with the storage and all those things. But that was because I already had that thing in my mind that I don't know how I'm gonna do this, but I know I'm gonna do it somehow. So I need to prepare myself for it. So I prepared for this for a long time. But if you're just ready right now today to get up and go and start a podcast, yeah, you don't have to get a Rodecaster Pro or the mic that I have, or there are just so many more budget friendly options available.
Yeah, I feel like it really depends. So for anyone who's listening out there, I mean, the Shure SM7B, it is like the microphone that everyone gets, and eventually one day, I want to get that same mic as well. So I definitely strive for that. But like Kertia mentioned, you can get something a little bit more budget friendly. There's like different handheld mics that you can use. There's even like the clip-on microphones; those work very well.
Yeah.
You don't want to buy something like that. The Vocaster one's really good, like interface to get started with, and like good headphones as well. So I have like Audio Technica. So these are
Yeah.
the ATH20. So this was like $70 here in Canada. So I mean, it's a good price. You don't have to break the bank. Eventually, I want to tell myself like I want to be like the collector of like podcast equipment. It's like, oh, you need this? I got
Yeah.
you. You need this? No problem. But like for now, I'm just kind of like I'm content with what I have, but I'm building towards that.
I feel like one day, one day maybe you'll be that person whereby you've built so much around podcasting that you'd be probably that person who's like, enter this giveaway and I'll send you a mic. I'll send you this really nice mic, or I'll send you this $200 headphone or something like that. I could totally see you doing something like that.
Yeah, like I feel like they'll call me like the podcast plug. You know,
Yeah.
that's my little nickname and everything like that.
Yeah. I like it. I like that
Mm,
for you.
Okay. That's actually all the questions I have. There's more, but I feel like you kind of answered all of them throughout the conversation. You kind of talked about a personal experience where you had to like address a fear. You talked about just embracing fear and overcoming it as well. So I love it when my guests are able to answer questions that I have prepared without me having to ask it, within the conversation. It makes my job easier. So
Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah,
love
but
that. I love that. Yeah,
mhm.
fear is necessary. It's just something that is a part of the human experience. We can't get rid of it. And from an evolutionary standpoint, it has been a necessary means of protecting ourselves. The brain is meant to protect you in every way. So it will create mechanisms to prevent you from getting hurt, both physically and emotionally. Even if sometimes some of those mechanisms create some level of chaos in your life. So, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, I know we're done with the questions, but I do have a fun little activity before we wrap things up. So
Yeah.
we've done this a couple of times on the radio before I came on to Love Bay Radio, and I want to do a blind ranking.
Okay.
Now, usually I only do five. I do up to five, like 1 to 5. But this time we're gonna spice it up. We're gonna do 1 to 10 this time.
Okay. Okay. What are we ranking?
So we're gonna rank celebrities who have their own podcast, their own talk show, whatever the case may be. That's what we're doing. And I want you to rank it in terms of like your interest of like having them as a guest, if that makes sense.
Interested in having them as a guest. Okay. Okay. It's got
Yeah.
to be
So
people I know, though.
I tried my best when picking these 10 names. I'm like, okay, if I say someone random and then she's like, who?
All right, all right. Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
jump in.
I mean, I think it'll be fun because maybe depending on the blind ranking, you'll rank this person. It's like, oh man, by the end of it, I might regret it.
Let's see.
Yeah. We'll see. And to let you know, like I won't be listing all 10 at once. I'm gonna be
All right.
listing one at a time, and you have to place them. So again, number one's basically like that's the one you want to get for sure as like your next guess. And then number 10 is basically like the least interested you have, basically.
All right. All right. All
Oh,
right. So who I'd want to have as a guest. That's what I'm ranking.
yeah. And I tried to
Okay.
pick the people who, have their own podcast or did a talk show or something similar to that.
All right.
Okay, let's go. So the first name I have here is Kerry Washington.
Oh my gosh. She is definitely a one. I love
Off
her.
the bat?
What? No questions asked. Carrie is my girl.
Wow, I did not expect that. Okay, number one. I love it. You're going right to it. It's like get number one out the way.
Yep.
Okay. So the next one I have here is Stephen A. Smith.
I don't know who that is.
Stephen, you haven't heard of Stephen A. Smith? He's like a sports analyst. He's on ESPN. I don't know if you've seen like the clips where he's like, "Stay off the weed," or like when he's like one of the most like I guess outlandish sports analysts because like he's so vocal for his opinions. I know I'm explaining it, but you're probably like, Sean, I still don't know who that is. So.
I haven't watched sports in a while, to be honest. I haven't, and usually I don't usually know a lot of people that I'm not particularly keen on by name, but I usually know them by personality. And the fact that you're just telling me that and I still can't make the connection, I'm just like, move on, Sean.
Okay, so where are you putting him though? Where are you putting Stephen A? Because you already have Kerry Washington at number one. Where's he going?
Okay, what about him is interesting though?
I mean, like he's someone who's like again, like his personality kind of speaks for himself. He's very loud, very brash, but he has a lot of fun moments on ESPN. He's very known for getting into like heated like sports debates and everything like that. He's a New York Knicks fan. If anyone here knows about Stephen A. Smith, this man will rep the New York Knicks till the day he dies. I'm telling you, it's the most hilarious thing. But again, like where are you putting him? Like from because the number one spot's already taken from Kerry Washington.
I'll put him at number 10. I'm not a huge I love sports.
Okay,
But,
number 10.
yeah, I wouldn't spend an hour talking about sports.
Okay.
Maybe like 15 minutes.
I feel you. So we have number 1 and number 10 already out the way. Very interesting. Okay. Okay, the next person I have, and I'm wondering if you know this name, but I'm hoping is Patricia Jaggernaut.
No.
No. She used to be on CP24.
What was her role there?
I mean, she did like the weather. She did the weather at some point.
She was Google her?
If you want to Google, do that. Please take the time to Google.
I feel like you should Google it. I feel like I would know the faces, but I just don't know the names. I'm Googling right now, guys.
Probably do that. And like maybe if you should have done that for Stephen A. Smith, you'd be like, oh, you know what? I have seen this person before.
Okay.
Yeah, so
let me
again,
get it together.
Yeah, so in the meantime, while you're Googling again, guys, she has selected Kerry Washington number 1.
Her. I know exactly who that is. I just didn't remember her name. Wow.
Okay. It's all good. So
all right.
Where are you ranking her?
Put her at a 6.
Okay. Number 6. Number 6 for Patricia Jaggernaut. Okay. The next one I have here, LeBron James.
Oh, gosh. LeBron James. What am I going to talk to him about?
I mean, it doesn't have to be sports related. You could probably do something that has to do with your podcast.
I know. I think I would put him at a number 4.
Okay, number 4 for LeBron. Not bad. That's a good spot.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, let's see. Next up, Michelle Obama.
Michelle Obama.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, I'll put her at number 2.
Okay. I'm wondering if you're still kind of like regretting like Kerry Washington number 1. It's like, oh man, he said
No,
Michelle
I'm
Obama.
not.
It's like staying 10 toes down. Okay. The next name I have here is Joe Budden.
Joe Budden. Okay,
Yes.
interesting. Number 7.
Number 7. Okay. Oh, you're not really a Joe fan?
I'm okay with him. I'm waiting for who's coming next.
It's like, Sean, like, don't screw me over now.
Give
All
me
right.
something good, Sean. Like
Okay.
he's okay. I'm
All right.
okay with him.
I got you. How about Oprah?
Oprah.
Yeah.
Oprah. Where would she be? So I had Carrie at 1, Michelle at 2.
You got
number 3 is still not there.
Yeah, LeBron's at 4, Patricia Jaggernaut's at 6, Joe Budden's at 7, then you have Stephen A. Smith at 10.
I guess I'll put her at 3.
Okay, for 3.
Can I switch? Can I switch if I want to?
Wait. You want to switch now?
No, not yet. Not yet. Not yet.
Do you want? Okay, you know what? I'll give you the chance to probably switch at the end when you select everything.
All right. Yeah, Oprah at 3 for now. I think that's good. That's a good spot.
Okay, fair. Next up, we have. Hold on. Is my phone's not loading? Hold on. Give me a sec. Okay. Next up, we have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
I like that guy. I would put him in. I think I'd put him in Joe Budden's place.
Because like the Joe Budden's at number 7, so
put Dwayne at 7 and Joe at 8.
So okay, so we're gonna put Joe at 8, and then put Dwayne Johnson at 7 now. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson at number 7. I feel like everyone would want to have an interview with The Rock.
Yeah, I do want to have an interview with him, but I mean, I have some pretty good starters.
I mean, like just.
I mean, he could even take Oprah's place, to be honest.
Just to let you know, ladies and gentlemen, she has Patricia Jaggernaut over The Rock. Just keep that in mind. I'm letting you know. I'm letting you know right now. So let me get to the next person. The next one. And this one's a little bit of a curveball. Keke Palmer.
Oh, I really like her. I think she'll take Oprah's place.
Really? So number 3.
Yeah.
So where's Oprah going then?
I mean, wherever she falls. I mean, okay. I like Oprah. I respect her work. But I think there's just so much. Like, what I'm really interested in is what else can I discover about this personality? You know what I mean? Like, with Oprah, we've seen so much of Oprah, right? And she's told her story. And I'm sure, of course, there's details we don't know. We're never going to know anyone's full story. But when I'm choosing, I'm thinking of what can I discover about this person? What else, what other discoveries are there to be made, right? And
Right.
I feel like Kiki would have a really interesting story to tell. So
Okay.
that's what I'm basing it off. I'm not basing it off celebrity.
I like that. No, I really like that. You have like a structure and a rationale. So that's okay. So
Yeah.
Kiki's 3.
I'm very strategic.
Okay, but
I'm not
not
I'm not I'm not choosing people because they're popular or they're like huge out there. I'm really like thinking about this at a very deep level.
okay. That's fair. Okay, so here's the thing.
Yeah.
Kiki's at 3. Where's Oprah going? Because I need to put Oprah
Okay,
somewhere.
what do I have? Okay, I have
So
one, two,
I think
three.
you have 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't have 5. You don't have 6, and you don't have 9.
Let's put Oprah at 6 for now. It could
Oh,
change.
okay. I just want to make sure. So let me just recap. So we have Kerry Washington at 1. We
Yeah.
got Michelle Obama at 2.
Yeah.
Kiki at 3. We have LeBron at 4. The number 5 spot's open. Number 6 is Oprah. Number 7 is Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Number 8 is Joe Budden. And number 10 is Stephen A. Smith. So you have one more name left. Or is it two
One
more?
more? I
Is
think
it
two
one?
more. I need a
Oh,
5 and a 9,
oh,
right?
my bad. Patricia's at 6. My bad. I forgot Patricia.
Oh,
Patricia's at 6.
Patricia's a 6. So I
Okay, so
need
you
I need number 5 and number 9,
yeah, you need
right?
number. Oh, wait. So because I didn't realize that, you can't put Oprah at 6 because Patricia was originally 6.
Okay, put Oprah at 5 then.
Okay, Oprah's at 5. Okay, I
Yeah.
see. Perfect. So now you have the number 9 spot. So the last person I have here is Brandon Gonez.
Brandon Gomez.
Yes.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
he has to go in the 9 slot. Unless you want me to like we're gonna do one more like full on like makeover with the list, like you let me know.
Hmm. Hmm. I guess. I guess. But I would have moved him up if I could. I could have tied him with someone else. But if that's the only spot left, then sorry,
I've
Brandon.
never heard in the history of a blind ranking saying, "Hey, can I tie somebody?" Like, is that possible?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'd like to hear Brandon's story. Definitely. I would love to. Right? Why did
Okay.
he start his podcast?
All
Who
right.
is he? What's his
Fair.
background? Where is he coming from? So,
Uh,
yeah, I'd definitely
okay.
love to hear his story. Sorry, Brandon. If I had a
O-
choice, I would
Okay.
move you somewhere else.
Yeah. All right. So just to recap the list quickly before we head off. Kerry Washington, number 1, Michelle Obama, number 2, Kiki Palmer at number 3, LeBron at number 4, Oprah number 5, Patricia Jaggernaut at 6. We have Dwayne The Rock Johnson at number 7, Joe Budden at 8, Brandon Gonez at 9, and Stephen A. Smith at 10. So you did give your rationale on how your list wants to be. People who are still listening here, let us know, how did Kersha do? Did she do a good job? Did she get the picks that you were looking for? Let me know. But that's all we have for this conversation. Kersha, thank you for coming on the Safe Room podcast. This was might have been our longest conversation so far here being on Love Bay Radio. So I'm glad that it was with you.
Thank you so much, Sean. This was an amazing and equally fun conversation. And thank you
Yeah,
for everyone who's listening.
absolutely. Where can people find you on social media? Where can people connect with your podcasts?
Well, the podcast is available on all listening platforms, but you can find me on social media at Discover the Other Side of Fair, or you could just type my name in, Kertia Janae or Kertia Johnson, any combination of those things. You can also find me on TikTok as well. I post reels there from my podcast episodes, and it's Kertia Janae as well. So yeah, just look for my name, guys. Pretty easy to find, pretty obvious.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. And again, please guys go listen to the conversation I was on with Kertia for her podcast as well. It was fantastic being on the other side of fear, kind of sharing my personal story, how I got started with everything in podcasting. So you definitely want to. That's honestly, I'm gonna be biased. It's the best episode she's ever done. You know, I mean, like let's keep it a buck right now. Like it's the best conversation. Listen, all respect to everybody else. Look, I mean, come on now.
Big up yourself, Shon.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, guys, thank you guys for tuning into the Safe Room here on Love Bay Radio. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can check us out at the Safe Room Official. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all listening platforms as well for our previous conversations. And make sure you guys tune in next week here on Love Bay Radio to your favorite podcast. But until then, we'll see you guys next time.
Amazing. Thank you so much.